Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Countdown to 3-minute mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Countdown to 1-minute mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Countdown to 30-second mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Countdown to 10-second mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic. If you have a car question for Bobby, call now at 1-800-264-5454, toll free from anywhere in America. And now, here's your host, Bobby Likis.
And I want to welcome you to this perfect Saturday morning. I hope it's great where you are, but right here from the center of the automotive universe, which happens to be Bobby Likis Car Clinic. Thank you very much. We're celebrating our 28th year. The weather is perfect. It's a great day to be outdoors in your car, or outdoors at the beach, or outdoors wherever in your neck of the woods that you want to be, and enjoy yourself. In the meantime, ride along with me this hour. I'm Bobby Likis. I'll be your personal car consultant. We also have a special guest that's going to come in to our broadcast, Jeff Knapp, who is the chair of the Central Nebraska Auto Club. And today, they're kicking off about the same time that we are. The international, well, I say international, it will be because of this program, the indoor show for everything automotive, cars, and you're going to hear a lot more about that as the show goes on. We're going to welcome Jeff when we come back from the break. In the meantime, Bobby Likis Car Clinic is brought to you in part by O'Reilly Auto Parts. Folks, Don't take a chance on being stranded. You can stop by O'Reilly Auto Parts and get your battery tested. It's free of charge and one of the many services available, and if your battery needs to be replaced, the professional parts people will help you find the exact battery for your car or truck. O'Reilly Auto Parts, better prices every day. 888-227-2546. That's 888-227-2546. Your calls now when I come back. Talking tunes? No, not the ones on your radio, the ones that allow you to reprogram your vehicle's factory computer. The result is more power, more torque, and a better overall driving experience. Diablo Sport performance programmers and monitors integrate well with other aftermarket accessories and can be used with aftermarket tires and wheels to correct the speedometer, gear ratio changes for aftermarket gears, or even with on-dash display to activate LED aftermarket lighting through the EAS power switch. Find your perfect tune at DiabloSport.com. Berryman's B12 Chem Tool features HEST, or high-energy solvent technology. Using a combination of stronger solvents, HEST technology helps maximize one-tank cleanup of intake valves, fuel injectors, carburetors, and combustion chambers. But don't take our word for it. According to Berlin, I bought my first can of Berryman B12 Chem Tool at 16, and 7 years later, the car runs just like a champ. My husband and I agree that Berryman's HEST technology is the difference. Learn more about Berryman's B12 Chem Tool and other great products at BerrymanProducts.com. It's car cruising time. Time of year where you take out your vintage ride and enjoy some quality time behind the wheel. With summer driving season right around the corner, if you have an older car, why not put together a side-of-the-road emergency kit, including belts, hoses, flashlight, and a bottle of K-Seal. That's right, K-Seal. Older cars with older cooling systems are more prone to leaks and failures. Radiators, heater cores, head and or intake gaskets, just to name a few. These problems typically occur away from your garage, creating chaos and ruining the good times. K-Seal is great insurance and will help keep your car from having to be towed, and for a fraction of the cost. And it can save the day by safely sealing your cooling system. K-Seal is different from other sealers with its ceramic technology that's designed to repair the leak without clogging. Log on to K-Seal for more information, including videos and the many different applications. Don't just seal it, K-Seal it.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Rosie Outfitters, I'm Tina. How can I help you?
I'd like to place an order.
Great. Which item?
The cotton roll neck sweater, large.
Okay. Periwinkle, loaded, or caramel?
The caramel, please.
The what?
I'd like it in caramel.
Oh, the caramel?
Yeah, that's what I said, Tina.
Actually, you said caramel when it's pronounced caramel.
Can't we just call it yellow?
No.
Everyone knows the best part of a Milky Way. They just don't know how to say it. After all, it's our caramel.
It's caramel.
Ugh, that makes a Milky Way great.
You start my morning, you stir in my soul, you warm my heart, make me feel whole. Your aroma calls me, starts my morning, happy morning. Your name is Folgers Mountain Grow, now you're here. Your aroma helps me wake and the day is mine to take. The best part of waking up is Folgers in your cup.
And now back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic and your host, Bobby Likis.
And as I said earlier, welcome to you this morning for today's broadcast. And just remember, every Saturday from 10 till noon Eastern Time, we come to you from the center of the automotive universe. And if you've never heard this program before, I'll just remind you, those of you who have and those of you who have not, maybe you're tuned in for the first time, for the past 28 years I've hosted this broadcast. We come live from the inside of a 15,000 square foot automotive service shop, which has been in operation since 71. So that's 48 years. And we're celebrating our 48th year serving customers and car owners and clients who come to us with their challenges, of course, and also to maintain their automobiles. And speaking of automobiles, we have in the queue Jeff Knapp, who is chair of the Central Nebraska Auto Club, with an update and information about the great show that's going on just this morning, just starting. Jeff, welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic. Glad to have you join us today. How's it going in Nebraska?
Hey, Bobby, thanks for having us on. We are live from the Buffalo County Fairgrounds at the Expo Center, and we've got our 13th annual Car and Bike Show going on.
So paint us a picture, if you would, Jeff. The building is large. This is an indoor show. What's the weather like outside today in Kearney?
You know, it's about 50 degrees, Bobby. The sun is out. It's a beautiful day.
Tell us about the cars and tell us about the event, and also mention a few of the sponsors. I know that the Platinum sponsors the Kearney Visitors Bureau, as it should. You know, I think that all of you and your car associates and all of the car owners there should really be proud. As I understand, we have 2 shows a year there in Kearney, and the Central Nebraska Auto Club puts on both of those programs. That's got to be great for the community and for tourism, right?
It is. So, Cruise Night is our big event. That's coming up the 3rd week in July, and that's turned into almost a week-long celebration. This show today is a one-day event. It's inside. We're probably looking at either side of 100 cars and bikes coming in today, and it's just a lot of fun, and it doesn't matter what the weather is because it's sunny and 70 inside the Expo Center.
I love it. So any favorite cars yet? I mean, I know it's early on. The cars, probably came in, or some of them this morning, but for the most part yesterday and the day before. When do you start?
We started last night about 5 o'clock. I'll tell you what, our signature car this year, Bobby, is on loan from our classic car collection, and that is a 1959 Cadillac 4-door hardtop. It's a beautiful car. It's got to be 20 foot long, and you know those big fins in the back. Well, I tell you what, it is a beautiful car.
Well, that was one of my favorite cars back in the day. In fact, I worked for an individual who drove an Eldorado Biarritz, and it had, I think it was a 390 engine with 3 carburetors on it. Unbelievably beautiful automobile. And of course, at that time, that was a long time ago, but the car was new, and it was platinum gold or a fire mist gold. The most beautiful car I think I've ever seen. And today, those cars are worth more than $100,000, some of them even higher into the double digits.
I understand a lot of them have gone overseas, which is unfortunate, but that's just the market, I guess, that we have today.
So what else was going to be inside today, and what events are going to go on other than just the car show within the car show?
Sure. You know, we've got a couple things going on, Bobby. We're raising money for our scholarships that we give out each year. We send 1 or 2 $1,000 scholarships each way to some high school students that are going on to automotive-related careers, and so we're raising money for that with our raffle. The other thing going on, we have some friends that are donating or raising money to be donated to the American Cancer Society. A little boy passed away several years ago. His name was Alex Edwards, and his family is here, and they've got a little bag in front of each car. Throw your change, your dollar bills in those bags. The car with the most money in it wins a special award from his family, plus all that money is donated to the Cancer Society in Alex's memory.
So for all of the folks there in Kearney who might be tuned in to KGFW this morning and are listening to Jeff and me, I'm Bobby Likis, and Jeff Knapp is there at the fairgrounds with the car show. You mentioned cancer. Just this week we lost a Chevrolet dealer owner, Pete Moore, who was a huge community supporter to cancer, and today will be his services. And so I want to dedicate some of this program to Pete Moore and all the associates and, of course, his family. And also to say that I lost my wife to cancer. So for all of you who can and will and haven't really thought about it but should think about it, please go out to the fairgrounds. And for those of you who are going to be there, make sure that you put your money where your mouth is and support the Cancer Society, because surely one day we will get a cure for cancer. So I just want to remind everybody, and I want to congratulate you, Jeff, and all your associates with the Central Nebraska Auto Club for their continuing efforts to raise money to battle cancer. I thank you personally as well while we're here.
It's a great cause, Bobby. We're just so proud we can help.
So, any games or any food? A car show with food?
We've got food coming in. We've got concessions at lunchtime. We've got a DJ spinning some old auto records and auto tunes. So yeah, it's a carnival atmosphere, if you want to say that.
Yeah. What do you drive, or do you have a classic or a hot rod? And is this show relegated to classics or hot rods, or what's the parameters within the cars?
We are pretty friendly to everybody. We have some friends in another club here in town that have rat rods, and they'll bring a handful of those out and show them off, and that's cool. We like them all. So I'm driving today, or on display, is in my 1956 Continental Mark II, which is a pretty rare car. It's a black beauty, and we've got probably about 20 host cars that are on display, and we're asking the participants to give us a winner of the host car trophy.
So just a quick question about your Continental. Are the leathers in good shape in that car?
This car has been restored, Bobby, before I owned it, and it is in very nice shape. You bet.
Those were, I think, one of the most beautiful cars that Ford Motor Company ever created, the Continental. And what year was it again, 56?
56. It was a 2-year run, 56, 57. It's my understanding they retailed for about $10,000. You could buy a Cadillac for less than $5 back in those days, and they tell me that Ford Motor Company lost money on each one they made. Well,
it wouldn't surprise me. You know, the Dodge Viper wasn't a moneymaker for Dodge, for Chrysler Corporation, but it certainly was a way that Bob Lutz and Bob Eaton, who was the president and CEO and general managers of the company at that time, all they had down the halls, they put the picture up of the Viper. Otherwise, they had the K car, which was really not a bad. It was a spec car, Jeff, but still, you can't brag much on having a K car. So they said, let's do something special. Let's make a Cobra beater, and so they designed. And in every room, in every hallway, even the bathrooms, as I've heard, they had paintings of and drawings of the soon-to-be Viper. And literally everyone behind the doors and everyone in the showroom and across the nation and there at the plant got behind the Viper, and Chrysler did a great job. I owned one from 01 for 16 years, and it was really a massive automobile. Mine had a real top on it, and it had an air conditioner system, which the first ones didn't even have that. They had no top and no windows on the side, like an OMG, yeah. What other kind of cars are there, Jeff?
I saw a beautiful 59 Pontiac Bonneville pull in a convertible. I've not seen one of those for a long time. A lot of chrome, a lot of neat lines, something you just don't see. That's what I enjoy, Bobby, is the ones you just don't see every day. But we've got Camaros, we've got Mustangs, we've got a little bit of everything.
Are these all local cars, Jeff, you think, or do you have cars that come in from across the other states?
Sure. We've got one I know in particular comes from Iowa, so that's a half a state away, and those folks have a 61, and it's now a Nomad. I don't think it started out as a Chevy Nomad, but it's a white two-door wagon, and it's something that's been customized. A beautiful job doing that. But they've been here for a couple of years now, and they come from all the way from Iowa, which is probably about a 5-hour trip.
So is this does it cost to get into the show, and where's the show located? And folks, we're live with Jeff Knapp, and he's at the fairgrounds there in Kearney, the Buffalo County Fairgrounds, correct?
That's correct. We are out here at the fairgrounds in the big expo center. It is a $5 admission. Kids 12 and under are free, and we'd love to have folks come out and see the wonderful cars and motorcycles we have on display. Well,
there you have it, folks. What a great time to go out, and I just love to watch people walk around, and then you can talk to the owners there and learn more about what they bought and restored and how long they've had the cars. And also, it's a great place to find a great ride if you're looking to buy a classic car. And I want to thank you, Jeff, for taking the time and sharing the information there from Kearney about the Central Nebraska Auto Club and all the great fun that's going to go on today out at the fairgrounds.
Hey, Bobby, thanks for having us on your program. I know you get to talk to Brad and Jerry, usually cruise night, but it's such an honor to get to be on your program.
Well, likewise, Jeff, have a great day and much success to your event, and we look forward to hearing more from Kearney as it occurs. Thank you so much for joining us on Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Thanks, Bobby.
Well, there you have it, folks. That just doesn't get any better than that. Kearney, Nebraska. Now, I don't know if you know where Kearney, Nebraska is, but it's Central Nebraska. Duh, the Central Nebraska Auto Club. We've been there. Kappa Ethanol, the headquarters are there. I've been to an ethanol plant there, and also I've been to a feed lot. And now that's a switch, the feed lot. If you've never been to a feed lot, you really should go. It's one of those bucket list things. Well, maybe not, but the car show would be. So get on out there to the Buffalo Fairgrounds, but stay where you are because I'll be back after this break. As winter comes to an end and spring begins, the Car Care Council reminds you that April is National Car Care Month. There's no better time for a comprehensive check of various vehicle maintenance items. Here are a few things to consider. Keeping battery terminals free of dirt, grime, and oxidation will ensure a clean connection and a stronger charge. Clean and flush your cooling system, and be sure to use new coolant. This will help rid your radiator of rust, dirt, and sludge, and will help prevent overheating. Check tread depth on tires. Insert a penny head first into the lowest point of the tire tread. If you can see the top of Abe's head, you need new tires. Correct tire pressure is also important, as under or over-inflated tires wear unevenly. And proper wheel alignment may not seem vital, but misalignment can shorten tire life and pose safety issues. For more great tips, videos, and recommended service schedules, visit carcare.org. And while you're there, order a free copy of the Car Care Guide for your glove box. That's carcare.org. This car repair spotlight brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts. This week, a 2013 Ford Taurus came in the shop with 104,000 miles and a leaking water pump. Okay, replace water pump, no problem, right? Wrong. Water pump replacement on a Ford 3.5 V6 includes removal of timing chains and all engine components located on the front of the engine. Better do this right the first time, or you'll lose a day's work. While Tommy, our ASE certified technician, disassembled the engine, we called our local O'Reilly Auto Parts professional and ordered parts. We also borrowed a few special tools from O'Reilly Auto Parts that were needed to do the job. It's really terrific to have a great team of O'Reilly Auto Parts nearby to help us keep our customers' cars on the road. Water pump and new chains installed, owner happy, and we were too. Another great story about why our first call for parts is O'Reilly Auto Parts. O'Reilly Auto Parts. Better parts, better prices every day.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
The airlines like to have sales. Summer getaway sales, holiday sales, winter sales. Truth is, at any moment, some airline somewhere is on sale with low fares to great destinations. Travelocity knows exactly what's going on, who's on sale, to where, and when, at over 700 airlines worldwide. We even have this nifty feature that lets you look at a calendar so that you can see exactly the days the great fares are available. Travelocity.com. Go virtually anywhere. AOL keyword, travel.
Hun, guess my temperature.
It's 2 a.m. Go to sleep.
Come on, one guess.
I'm 98.
Higher.
Higher, 99.
You're getting warmer. Wait, I'm getting warmer.
Cold symptoms keeping you from getting a good night's sleep? Get NyQuil, the nighttime sniffling, sneezing, coughing, aching, stuffy head, fever so you can sleep better to feel better medicine. Use as directed.
One more guess.
100?
Yes. Tell her what she's won, Bob.
And now back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic and your host, Bobby Likis.
And welcome back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic, folks. I'll invite you to call. Jonathan is actually manning the phone this morning, so great job there. When you call in, you may be expecting to reach Hannah, but it's certainly not Hannah, and he's always, Jonathan's kind of a jack of all trades, I would say. He's become that. Fabio's a producer, and Jonathan Sloan handles the chat room and what have you. So for those of you in our Watch Bobby Live chat room, he's away from that board right now because he's at the phone to Gentner, taking the calls from across the nation. And we get calls. I got a call one day from Afghanistan, and that was really, really interesting to hear what was going on in the background. A lot of noise and a lot of explosions, and I was really, really taken by that call. Later on, that same individual called us during the middle of the week and said, well, I have more time to talk now, because as he was talking, some rocket launcher had gone off, and you could hear it literally. And so it was really interesting. I want to share with you something. First, the number's 888 Car Clinic, 888-227-2546. So now's a good time to get in versus toward the last of the program, so I don't have to hurry with that. I have, to my recollection, never promoted recalls on the air. I've talked about technical service bulletins, and as you know, they're available at alldata.com for years and years. And a TSB, a technical service bulletin, is sometimes it's information about how to repair an automobile. Or say, for instance, we have maybe a new procedure for bleeding a cooling system, and I'm just using that as an example. And a technical service bulletin is a bulletin from the manufacturer to the dealers. They're franchise dealers that say, when you get these cars in, and the TSB will be relegated to a certain batch of cars, and you use the VIN, which is a vehicle identification number, 17-digit alphanumeric number. All cars have. It's the birth certificate, if you will, and it gives a host of information. In fact, on our Facebook, I think we broke down the VIN, how to decipher the VIN number. It's really interesting because you can determine the size of engine and the date of manufacture and what batch the car was. You say, well, what batch? What do you mean? Well, the batch means that if you had from serial number 22500 to 22601, that's 101 cars that were right one behind the other. But those 602, that 101st car, could have the same size engine, but it would be a different batch of engines. It just so happened maybe a water pump was a different design, or a camshaft was a different design. There was something, and that would mean that the manufacturer had to put special software in that vehicle because there was a change in the hardware. And sometimes there's a software change, but those first batches have already been shipped or already been, they're out in the lot waiting to go to the dealerships across the nation. So in that case, when they get to the dealership, they put what's called a stop sell. A stop sell it means you cannot, if you're the franchise dealer, deliver this new car to a buyer until you perform this TSB or this upgrade or this reprogram, reflash. So that's a lot of information. And years ago, we all drove cars that had deficiencies that we didn't know it until 5 and 10 and 15,000 miles, and sometimes even longer, because the manufacturers didn't have any way to immediately track those cars. Whereas today, not only can they track them by serial number and, of course, using the internet as we do, but also they track them directly by tracking the car. Like OnStar knows a lot about your car as you drive the car, and that's how the OnStar knows if the check engine light is on and those sorts of things. Now, I said all that to say this. I'm going to share with you about a $307 million cash payments to class action members. And I hesitate to do this, and have in the past, because if I give this information out, then you're going to say, oh, maybe my car's involved in that, and you'll be concerned. So you hear neighbors and people talking about recalls and what have you. Other than the Takata airbag, which was a massive recall and still is very much active, there are few recalls that include a lot of automobiles. When you consider the ratio of how many new cars, 17 million new cars a year that are sold. So those are the kind of things that you don't want to take them for granted or with a grain of salt when you hear about a recall, but you also don't need to get so upset until you find out if your car, and you can go to, and write this down, folks, safercar.gov. safercar.gov. You go there, you put in your VIN, and it will tell you if your car has a recall or not. We do that every time we perform a pre-purchase vehicle inspection for any of our local customers. In fact, we've got a Porsche coming in this Tuesday for a pre-purchase vehicle inspection, and the buyer's in West Palm Beach, which is the bottom of the state compared to Pensacola, which is at the northwest corner of the state. So this gentleman in West Palm Beach is buying a Porsche that is owned by a local person. So we're performing a pre-purchase inspection on that vehicle, which will include not only looking for recalls and TSBs, but also looking into the software of the vehicle to make sure that the car hasn't been aggressively driven. Well, how do you do that? Well, of course, all cars have a rev limiter these days, so you really can't overwind a car. But if you continue to run it hard enough, long enough, and until it hits the bump stop, until it hits that ignition shut off and fuel cut, which limits the RPM, then there'll be a record of that in the car, and it just gives the potential buyer an indication of how the owner drove the automobile. So getting back, I want to share this with you. In the meantime, now's a good time to get in at 888 Car Clinic, 888-227-2546. So a judge in the United States District Court, Northern District of California, this week granted final approval of $307.5 million on a Fiat Chrysler Dodge Jeep Eco Diesel class action settlement. So here's the bottom line. Approximately 100,000 owners and lessees of Ram 1500, Jeep Grand Cherokee 3-liter diesel vehicles from model years 2014 to 2016 are eligible to file claims and receive the settlement's benefits. Most owners will receive $3,075 once the repair is completed. And if your car or truck falls in that a Ram 1500 or Jeep Grand Cherokee with the 3-liter diesel, you should go to ecodieselsettlement.com, and you can get detailed information and start the process to get a claim. So why did I share this today? Because it goes against what the reason I don't share it is because, as I've recently stated, I don't want to alarm you. But if you have these cars, you need to take it and have it fixed. But here's the sophistication of the new technology. What is the fix? The fix is nothing more than a software reflash. A software reflash. So it appears that when that vehicle was manufactured, and of course this reminds me of the VW, the diesel in the VW, but the bottom line, the software reflash will will clean this vehicle up. And this settlement, this class action is all about the fact that if you bought one of these 3-liter diesel Ram 1500 or Jeep Grand Cherokee engined vehicles, that you thought you were buying one thing when the car really wasn't what it was presented as. So that's really what this is all about. And I think that's where we have so many. A friend of mine's an attorney, and he and I were in a conversation, somewhat friendly conversation, I guess. I always thought he was really a jerk, but he's a friend of mine, so I didn't call him that, and we agreed to disagree. But so one day I was kind of on his case about some of the statements that he was making, and he said, "Well, Bobby, let me ask you something." He said, "If it weren't for the attorneys, what about people that are being wrongly handled, or like claims, insurance claims?" I said, "Well, you have a point there." So the point is this: there has to be a balance on both sides, whether it's automobile manufacturers or doctors or lawyers. There has to be a balance, and that's when you really think about it, there is a great balance. There's a balance between like speed limits and how fast you go, and how much power a car, and so when you get a car, let's talk about power, and because this is a great way for me to share with you information about if you drive a Ford. Now this is talking about software. Let's talk about Superchips. Superchips, of course, as you know, our friends at Superchips, and by the way, they have a fantastic offer. I'll share that with you a bit later in the program today. But Superchips tuner package, what that can do for you if you drive a GM, a Ford, a Chrysler, or a Jeep, that can unleash horsepower that's already in your engine that you have but you're not experiencing. Well, why would the manufacturers deliver an automobile that wasn't everything it should be? Well, for a lot of reasons. Number one, there's headroom there. So if the engine's capable of putting out 400 horsepower, and 375, for all intents and purposes, 375 is pretty close, and that's enough. And besides, they save another 10 horsepower, so next year they can do a software change and put 385. So, the new 2020 whatever car now that had 375 now has 385 and a little extra torque. So that's a good tool for the bagger. Also, that gives headroom, and it's a safety way to protect their engine. And there's an environmental issue that OEMs have to deal with that Superchips does not. So Superchips legally can go in and make changes to your software so that your engine will produce more horsepower when the manufacturer cannot do that. So that's the reason how and why, and that's why they can work. Because a lot of people say, well, why doesn't the manufacturers do this? Well, because they have rules and regulations to follow that Superchips does not. Now, does this render and affect your warranty on your car? Absolutely not. And those are great. You get a chance, you can go to superchips.com for a lot more information. Drive over there, superchips.com. I want to come back and take your calls at 888-227-2546. Don't go away. We recently sat down with Kate Searlick, Global Product Management Lead with Johnson Controls. Kate talked about the advantages of Agm batteries, noting they outperform traditional flooded batteries when partially charged, a key benefit if your normal driving consists of shorter trips. Let's hear from Kate.
Today's charging systems are not negatively affected by installing an Agm battery, and no modifications are needed for the alternator or the charging system. In fact, an Agm battery actually performs better when partially charged than a standard flooded battery. This means if you're not driving long enough distances to fully charge the battery, an Agm battery more efficiently performs and not consume additional power from the alternator. We were able to validate this in fleet testing we conducted in Las Vegas, where we witnessed Agm batteries providing up to twice the service life of a standard flooded battery.
Agm batteries help meet the electrical demands put on today's vehicles, and Johnson Controls is the world's largest producer of automotive Agm batteries. Learn more at autobatteries.com.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Waking up can be a chore, but morning's knocking on my front door. Know just what I'll do. Put on a pot of Folgers brew. Mountain grown aroma hits the spot. Helps me give all that I've got. An opportunity to start out smiling and happy. The best part of waking up is Folgers in your cup.
I'm privileged to be involved with Capstone Adaptive Learning, formerly known as United Cerebral Palsy, for over 25 years. Since 1953, Capstone has provided quality care programs for persons with developmental disabilities like autism, cerebral palsy, Down syndrome, and intellectual disabilities. Dr. Sherry White with her team are dedicated to Capstone's clients, and 100% of your contributions stay local to serve those in this community. Go to capstoneadaptivelearning.org to see the difference Capstone makes.
Technology moves at the speed of innovation, and today, that's lightning fast. So when you get your hands on the latest tech, don't forget to do the right thing with your old devices. Recycle them. The Consumer Technology Association and its members are making recycling your old tech device as easy as purchasing new ones. Just go to greenergadgets.org, type in your zip code, and you'll instantly find the responsible recycling location closest to your home. You'll also find lots of tips to simplify your recycling, like asking the store where you buy your new TV if they'll haul away your old one. Television sets, video game consoles, smartphones, tablets, they're all recyclable. Don't let them clog up your local landfill. Just visit greenergadgets.org. You're sharp enough to get the latest tech tools into your home. Now be responsible enough to get your old devices to the recycler. That's greenergadgets.org.
And now back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic and your host, Bobby Likis.
And welcome back to this segment of Bobby Likis Car Clinic, brought to you by Superchips. I mentioned Superchips a little earlier in today's broadcast, and our friends at Superchips have a fantastic offer now through June 30. You can purchase a Trail Dash 2 or Trail Cal, and you're eligible to receive a free EAS power switch. Now, the EAS power switch seamlessly allows you to integrate accessories directly to your device on the dash. You can drive over to superchips.com for all the information. Again, now through June 30 for the purchase of a Trail Dash 2 or Trail Cal, and you're eligible to receive this free EAS power switch. It's really cool to be able to control and integrate your accessories right directly to your device, right there directly on your device. I'll take your calls at 888-227-2546. So earlier today, we talked with Jeff Knapp there from Kearney, Nebraska. And there's a car show within inside the fairgrounds building there, about 100 cars, I imagine, of all kinds. And it's very interesting. And Jeff mentioned the Cadillac, I think 59 model, the one that I remember that when I worked for a gentleman had a 60 model Eldorado Biarritz. Was the most gorgeous car, and at that time, fins and chrome. I mean, you know, almost to the point that a lot of people say is a bad, look at all those fins and chrome. But I will tell you, folks, it was absolutely a beautiful automobile. It was massive. I bet it weighed near 6,000 pounds with a huge frame. You know, that was the body on the frame era with a huge differential and big drum brakes. That's right, drum brakes. That was pre-disc brakes at that time. But it had 3 carburetors, and it would run on the 2-barrel. Had 3 2-barrels. Would run on the single 2-barrel unless you got into the throttle, and then it would open up the others. And you know why does a car that runs X with X power run better with 2 more carburetors than 1? Well, because an engine is an air pump. So if you open up the airway to the engine, make a bigger mouth, then that engine will produce more power. Now you can overdo it. You know, you could put a 5-gallon bucket opening on an engine, and the engine would just stagger because there would be no what's called volumetric efficiency. Well, what is that? Well, volumetric efficiency is when you whistle. That's volumetric efficiency. That's where you have a portal and you have air flowing through it, and there's a vortex or there's a flow, and the flow and the volume of air is relevant to the filling of the cylinder. Of course, volumetric efficiency is kind of thrown out the window when you put a turbocharger or supercharge on the engine, because if the engine's an air pump and you can only get so much air through the engine into the engine at a certain given time when you open the throttle, then you just put you make a pressurize the atmosphere by using a turbocharger or a supercharger, and you get more power out of the smaller engine. So if you've got a 300 horsepower V8, say that it produces, let's say 350 horsepower, 375 horsepower, a 5-liter V8 engine without a supercharger. You could take a 4-cylinder, which is half the cylinders, and a 4-cylinder would probably be, let's say, 2-liter or even a 3-liter. So you got a 160, 180 cubic inch engine compared to a 300 cubic inch engine, and yet it will put out equal to and even more power than the V8. In fact, when the V6s first came out, those of us in the automotive service industry thought that was sacrilege to put a V6. I remember when NASCAR decided they wanted to go with V6s on some of their categories, and we all kind of scoffed at that until we saw them running 190 miles per hour. How do they do that? Well, they do that with technology and getting more air in that engine, and then what have you. And speaking of technology, and speaking of the Central Nebraska Auto Club, I want to go back to Kearney, at least for just share something with you. There's a company that's owned by Norris Marshall, a friend of ours there. It's called Blueprint. So for those of you who are looking for a new engine, and this is not a sales pitch, it's horsepower in a crate. Horsepower in a crate. It's a crate motor. And that's what I have decided that Norris Marshall with Blueprint.com, that's what he's selling, horsepower in a crate. And in fact, he founded Blueprint Engines more than 20 years ago because he was building engines for local racers right there in his garage. And since then, Norris Blueprint Engines has grown to be one of the largest crate engine manufacturers in the world. And He's really a neat guy. It means that when they make these engines, when they build these crate engines, they're reliable because they run every engine. Now, here's something that I didn't really know until I did some research. They run every engine they build on a dyno. And when you open the crate, that's what I said, horsepower in a crate. When you open the crate, the dyno sheet is in the crate. So you know, when you talk about bragging rights, you're at a car meet, if you were there at the fairgrounds today, and you say, well, I've got a crate engine. Well, how many horsepower? Well, folks, bench racers, that's what they're called. That means that people that talk about racing but don't have cars to race. Bench racing is really a lot of fun. Well, my car ran 10 seconds in a quarter mile. Well, gosh, mine ran 980 in a quarter mile. What, really? Really? Let me see your slip, your ET slip. So in this case, with Blueprint engines, let me see your slip, or let me see the dyno results, and you have it. So you don't, bragging rights. It's this comprehensive dyno generated printout shows these critical specs. And as I said, there's no more guessing or wondering what your installed engine's real-world peak horsepower and torque ratings actually are. So you can bench race, and you can talk about your horsepower in a crate. And for those of you who really don't care about horsepower, but you're in a position where you need an engine, a crate engine is a new engine. And so it's not a rebuilt engine. And you don't want to put a rebuilt engine in your car anyway. A reman engine, yes, not a rebuilt engine. Well, what's the difference? Well, the difference is like a transmission. In fact, years ago, the state of California passed a law, and they created the definition of a remanufactured, rebuilt, or overhauled automatic transmission. Why? Because the automatic transmission, what's inside the automatic transmission? Well, not to get technical, but it's gears and clutches. And the clutches are applied like we drive a standard transmission. You step on the clutch. It has springs and a plate, and that the springs push the plate toward the flywheel, and sandwiched in the middle is a clutch disc, and that disc drives the input shaft of the transmission. So it's all standard mechanical parts. Automatic transmission, same thing. They have planetary gear sets and clutches and but instead of using clutch-operated springs, they use hydraulic pressure, and the hydraulic pressure applies the clutch. Well, how cool is that? It just really, really a neat way to handle that. So if one of those clutches wears out, do you throw the transmission? Do you throw the baby out with the bathwater? No, you don't throw the transmission out. You don't replace it. You can take that transmission apart and put a new clutch in it, and put seals in it, little rubber O-rings. It's what drives and holds the pressure within the transmission. And really, rubber bands drive an automatic transmission, or rubber seals, really. You think about that. Let me simplify it for you. A medical syringe uses a plunger to, of course, inject the med into your body, right? Well, there's an O-ring seal. When your finger pushes on the plunger, it's pushing against a piston that has an O-ring seal. That's the same way that an automatic transmission works. So if you've got an automatic transmission or a rebuilt engine, here's the point, then you put the clutch that was burned up with age, and you put a seal. And so now you've got a new transmission, right? Wrong. You don't, because there are metal on metal surface. There are other bands and clutches and drums and other things that have worn along with the seals in the clutches. So when you rebuild a transmission or overhaul a transmission, you're not getting an updated transmission that has all of the built-in bad parts that came from the factory, or recalls that were performed later down the road. You're getting the same used transmission that you had, with the parts that were worn out replaced, except for the hard parts. And those in the rebuilding business, you can't, nor would you expect, to replace the whole, throw the baby out with the bathwater, as they say. So what's the difference between a rebuilt and overhauled and reman? A remanufactured engine has all of the metal surfaces remanufactured, remachined to meet or exceed, but to at least meet the manufacturer's original equipment manufacturer's specs. So that's the difference. Now, what's a crate motor? Well, a crate motor's it's all new stuff. So you don't have to worry about, well, is this tolerance right? And did they do a nice machine job on the face plate or on the cylinder wall or on the head? You know, is the head surface smooth enough or is it rough enough? You know, believe it or not, you can have a too slick of a surface on the top of a block and or a head, and the gasket doesn't have anything to grab to. So that's all. It's all a science. It's all technical, and it's all engineering, and that's what the advantage of a crate motor would be, because a crate motor's it's a done deal. You don't have to worry about those sorts of things. So just wanted to mention that. Hats off to Blueprint. For more information, you can drive over to blueprint.com and take a gander at. They have videos and a little bit about Norris Marshall there. I first met him many years ago. Actually, it was not in Kearney, Nebraska. It was at an American Remanufacturing Association event, and I went down to look at the plant, not in Nebraska, but in Texas, actually. So I met Kearney, Nebraska, Norris Marshall in Texas when I was visiting a National Remanufacturing Association's event that year, and really piqued my interest. Why? Because I'm a car guy, and when you call me and you ask me a question, that's how I get my information. That's how I stay in tune. In addition to, folks, the fact that for 50 or 60 hours a week, we repair and we service and maintain and pre-repair, which is the prevention of repair. It's a program that we created and we codified and we trademarked and we own it. It's pre-repair, prevention of repair for all of our local and surrounding customers that bring their cars in. Why? Because it's easier and far less expensive to maintain your car than it is to repair your automobile. So why would you ever want to repair it? Well, sometimes you have to. Sometimes water pumps fail. In fact, we had, I mentioned it, I think a week ago, but we've now posted it online. You should take a look at the Facebook post on the 3.5 liter V6 Ford. This was a Taurus, a 13 Taurus. The water pump on that engine, folks. Now, what does a water pump do? A water pump is driven by normally the belt of an automobile. And a Lexus is it's driven by the timing belt. In regular cars, it's built by the drive belt, the serpentine belt that drives the alternator and air conditioner and water pump, power steering, all that. Okay, and it bolts onto the outside of the engine, and it takes water from the engine and flows, coolant to the radiator so that the radiator cools and can cool the engine. That's pretty simple. So what did Ford do? Nissan did the same thing. Infinity's and other manufacturers, they put the water pump inside the engine. That's right, inside the engine. In fact, the water pump pulley is a sprocket for the 4-cam timing chains. It's a sprocket for the main primary chain, and then each of the intake cams has a secondary chain that drives the exhaust cams that are adjacent on the heads. So why would Ford decide to put this water pump on the inside of the engine? What if it leaked? Well, you get coolant inside the engine. And here's the bottom line: all cars will leak, and all cars will need a water pump sooner or later. The water pump works in a pretty intense environment. With in the first place, car owners don't change their coolant, so the additive packages in coolant are there to stop corrosion and to keep the pH level correct and all the things that keep that water pump and the hoses and the engine happy. And when the coolant is run and left in the system too long, it deteriorates. And when it does, things go south, including the water pumps. Well, the Ford pump actually the original pump had a port that when the pump leaked, it would leak to the outside behind the alternator. Of course, you never knew where that was coming from. It's just that, there's coolant coming out of the side of the block. behind the alternator. But it was a port that ran from the inside of the engine. However, that port was only if the seal leaked around that port. The seal could leak in 85% of the peripheral of its seal and never hit that port, and it would be coolant in the engine, and then you wouldn't know until it was too late, and damage possibly could have been done. The replacement water pump corrected that issue so that the water pump that we put in this 3.5 liter Taurus was better than the factory's water pump. That's where you need to do research, and that's why we and my team does a good job there. Another great hour coming up. We've just completed this one. I'm Bobby Likis. Thanks for tuning in. Likis, you'll love us.
This is Bobby Likis Car Clinic. Bobby Likis Car Clinic is a copyrighted presentation of Car Clinic Productions Incorporated and may not be reproduced or rebroadcast without the express written approval of Car Clinic Productions Incorporated.
Today's Repair Spotlight is for gasoline-powered engines with 60,000 plus miles. At this age and high mileage, vehicles can develop irritating small oil leaks that can make a mess and ultimately cause serious damage to engine and chassis components. The solution? Berryman's B60 High Mileage Oil System Rejuvenator. It's simple to use and safe for engine components like catalytic converters and oxygen sensors. Berryman B60 High Mileage Oil System Rejuvenator cleans and protects the crankcase and engine oil system on all gas-powered vehicles and conditions and revitalizes seals and gaskets to help stop oil leaks. Berryman B60 High Mileage Oil System Rejuvenator contains zinc-based ZDDP and molybdenum moly to help fight friction, heat, and wear. It helps prevent sludge formation to maximize engine performance and life. Don't put up with those pesky oil leaks. Add some Berryman B60 to your motor oil and add another level of protection for your engine. Learn more about Berryman B60 and other great products at berrymanproducts.com.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
If you're familiar with the classified section of the newspaper, you probably understand this message quite well. You see, in the classified section, everything gets abbreviated. Consonants, vowels, prepositional phrases, the very building blocks of our language are thrown right out the window. And that makes it difficult when you're trying to sell your car. You've got a limited amount of space to work with, and by the time you abbreviate the description of your car down to a couple of fragmented sentences, it sounds less like a car and more like a Bluck sedan with sniffed like new condition lemals. No wonder more people are selling their cars through eBay Motors. They can post unlimited text and photo descriptions, and with a nationwide marketplace, they're likely to sell it for more. Plus, both parties can be covered by eBay's Vehicle Protection Program. Buyers are happy, sellers are happy, and no one's abbreviating. eBay Motors, a better way to sell your car.
Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Countdown to 3-minute mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Countdown to 1-minute mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Countdown to 30-second mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Countdown to 10-second mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic. If you have a car question for Bobby, call now at 1-800-264-5454, toll free from anywhere in America. And now, here's your host, Bobby Likis.
And welcome to this hour of Bobby Likis Car Clinic. So let me give you the drill. We're going to take your calls this hour, and we're going to share information, and I'll share with you information that you probably couldn't get anywhere else. And when I say that because I have been on both sides of the service desk, which means that I've taken calls, I've conversed with people across the nation right here on Bobby Likis Car Clinic. But in the meantime, 50 or 60 hours a week, I've also worked at the service desk where I have to help people who have challenges with their cars on a day-to-day basis. And in those cases, you have to perform. But the biggest challenge in car repair is to find out what caused the problem to go bad. You can put on new water pumps and new widgets all day long, but if you don't know what caused that widget to go bad, well, if it's a water pump, probably, yeah, it's just age and miles and et cetera and coolant. So you replace all that and you're back good as new. But when you have internal engine problems, or if you have those pesky electronic issues, that can really be hard to discern what causes those problems. And that's what we'll talk about. 888 Car Clinic. Call now, 888-227-2546. Bobby Likis Car Clinic is brought to you by Johnson Controls. When I come back, I'll give you a little information about Johnson Controls, the world's largest producer of automotive AGM batteries, and your calls after the break. Don't touch that dial. Time for another edition of Cooling System Q&A, brought to you by Motorrad, your first choice for vehicle thermostats and caps. Why is the thermostat so important? Cooling system regulates engine temperature and helps prevent overheating. While it's comprised of several components, the thermostat plays a critical role with efficient cooling system operation. It must regulate coolant flow properly to maintain a specific engine operating temperature, in addition to providing quick warm-up. Motorrad's new stainless steel thermal element UltraStat is unmatched for corrosion resistance. Its revolutionary Reax wax mixture provides quicker reaction time. The UltraStat also features bilinear valve technology, which prevents thermal shock to cooling system components, gradually increasing coolant flow versus instant maximum flow found in traditional thermostats. The UltraStat precisely controls engine temperature to ensure the lowest emission standards, maximum fuel efficiency, and terrific interior cabin comfort. The Motorrad UltraStat line is the perfect thermostat upgrade option with coverage for over 160 million vehicles on the road today. Motorrad, leading the way in coverage and service. We recently had an 09 Honda Pilot come into the shop with 169,000 miles on the odometer. The vehicle owner said the cabin was starting to smell like coolant, and he was concerned. Upon closer inspection, we found a heater core leak. Choices were to keep the vehicle and make a repair, which at best is half a day's labor plus parts, or sell the vehicle and buy a different used car that could have its own set of problems. We presented a third option, K-Seal. You've heard me talk about K-Seal before. Well, I don't just talk about it, we actually use the product in our service shop. It's a pour-in solution designed to stop leaks and help prevent future leaks. Other sealers use sodium silicate, which has a tendency to clog the system. K-Seal features ceramic technology that's designed to repair the leak without clogging. Our customer went with K-Seal, and 1 month later, no more leak. Learn more about K-Seal at kseal.com. Don't just seal it, K-Seal it.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Another lending success story from LendingTree.com.
Car dealers like playing games. They play percentage points, they play markups, but I don't like playing with my money. So I got my auto loan through LendingTree.com. I filled out one simple form, a marketplace of banks and lenders competed over it, and I got 4 offers back within hours. After all, the car buying game is a lot easier to win when you're holding all the cards.
LendingTree.com. When banks compete, you win. For additional information and state license disclosures, please visit our website located at LendingTree.com.
Driving has a rhythm all its own. Don't wreck it with a text. Before you get behind the wheel, silence your phone. Or better yet, designate a texter. For more text-free driving tips, visit stoptextstoprex.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration.
And now back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic and your host, Bobby Likis.
And welcome to today's broadcast. Bobby Likis Car Clinic, brought to you by Johnson Controls, the world's largest producer of automotive AGM batteries, which are precision engineered to meet the electrical demands we put on today's vehicles. You can learn more at autobatteries.com. And while you're at it, go to the Battery Shop, which is a terrific YouTube site that will help you to understand a lot of things about batteries, like how to replace a battery. Well, I know how to replace a battery. I just disconnect it, right? Wrong. There are steps, proper steps that you should take to ensure that there are no damages to the electronic system, because today's electronics, no pun intended, everything starts at the battery, and that is has become a major issue. And I say major issue, a major concern with all of the service shops, whether it's a dealership or independent, you name it. And that's the reason that we offer and we install at Bobby Likis Car Clinic AGM batteries. And again, Johnson Controls is the world's largest producer of automotive AGM batteries. Let's take a call from New York. Joel, welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic. Thanks for calling.
Yeah, hi there, Bobby.
Good morning, sir.
Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
So I got a 96 Chevy utility truck with I believe it's a 5.7
okay
engine. And at highway speeds, I could put it on cruise control, and on smooth pavement, and you can feel it. It's almost like it's misfiring, in my opinion. But I've had a complete tune-up, plug wires, plugs, distributor. The whole. He did a complete tune-up on it, and it's still running that way on highway.
So the first question, Joel, does the check engine light come on? Has it come on and stayed on?
It has come on before, but it doesn't. It's come on. I've had the vehicle probably like 3 months now,
right?
And it's come on twice.
Okay, whenever the check engine light comes on, and of course you only have the one light, but you have hundreds of reasons and components in the vehicle that would make it come on. But the fact that it has come on tells me that there's data stored within the PCM, within the powertrain control module of that vehicle. And so when the shop performs any services on the engine, even if they're just maintenance services, they should scan all of the codes, not necessarily because the light is on because it's off, but has been on. So there are data that is stored within the computer that will tell you and help you to determine where the challenge starts, not what's wrong with it. You can't hook up a machine to a vehicle and it's going to tell you everything's wrong with the car. A lot of people would like to think that, and I think our industry may have indicated that, but that's not the case at all. Instead, for instance, if you have an O2 sensor, and an O2 sensor would be showing up bad, doesn't mean the O2 sensor is bad at all. It could be a vacuum leak, like a PCV system or hose, and your engine on the left side, which is the driver's side of that engine, as memory serves me, there's a PCV system toward the rear of the engine near the firewall that has caused a lot of problems with, not caused a lot of problems, it's a common issue that we've seen from time to time. Let's see what else. Dirty injectors. I mean, that's a common denominator. So you can add an injector cleaner. Well, so you've put plugs and wires. What else did you do to the engine, Joel?
That was it. I mean, we've run cleaner through it.
Right.
That was it.
So has a shop scanned this vehicle, or have you scanned the vehicle?
And a couple of monitors. Okay.
Say again?
Where do I pay that?
Say again? Are you with me? We lost him. Hello? Are you with us?
Oh, yes. Sorry about that.
Okay, no worries.
Yeah.
So my question was, what codes have been pulled from the vehicle? Well, it's okay. Okay, all right, we got to go. We got to go. Joel, you have to call me back when you can. He's obviously at work in some switch capacity. So you'd want to know what vehicle, what codes were pulled from the vehicle, and then you would go from there, and you would gather that information, and then you would discern from that information what next steps are. Let me give you an example, folks. So when let's, for instance, fuel trim. This is one of my favorite, if not my favorite, secret search. Yeah, the secret search. What that means is, even if the check engine light's not on in your vehicle, there are codes and there's information that's being gathered by the onboard computer. Why? Because the check engine light is not flashed or turned on at every glitch. If that were the case, the check engine light would come on immediately every time you drove your car, because there's always glitches. Just like when you turn your lights on in your home and you get a little dim, from a glitch in the power source, or you turn on the trash compactor, or you turn on the garbage disposal, or the air conditioner cycles, you'll see the lights, sort of flicker. So that happens all the time in a vehicle. And your home is 110 volts, 120 volts, right? Well, the car uses a 5-volt reference. So you take away a little bit you only have a little bit, you take away a half a volt, and you change the whole operating character of the vehicle. That's why voltage is very important. That's why I mention and I support the Johnson Controls Agm battery, because you have a solid power source. And when we reflash computers in vehicles, which we do, we have our own station that maintains no less than 9.5 volts in the battery, because during the time that we take to reflash a vehicle, if the battery gets below a certain stage, not only would our reflash fail, we could damage the onboard computer. So you're taking a $2,000, say a Lexus has got a $2,500 PCM, and all it needs is a reflash, which is, let's say a $150 process. And in the process, instead of repairing or updating the program, you've just destroyed a PCM. And the only way you can repair it is to replace it. So that's another reason why you need to make sure that the individual that's working on your vehicle is ASE certified, because those are educated and trained professionals that do the job right. The days of doing it yourself are just no longer in existence. While you can perhaps change your own oil and filter, and quite candidly, folks, unless you really know what you're doing and you've studied and you have a working manual, a repair manual for your particular automobile, you shouldn't even change your own oil and filter. Why? Well, I'll give an example. My car doesn't have an oil stick in it. So how do we know how much? Well, we know how much oil it takes. It holds 8 quarts. But if you take, and it's a 5-liter V8 engine, and it's a 13 Jag, but if we bring that car in my shop, my car, and we change the oil and we put 8 quarts in it, it's overfilled. You can only put 7.4 quarts of oil, and I have right at 65,000 miles on this car. Change the oil every 6,000 to 7,000 miles, and I know to a degree of perfection, really, the oil level. And so the specs call for 8 quarts, but you better not put 8 quarts when you change the oil, because you can never get all the oil out of an engine. And in some cases, engines have certain areas, like the cylinder heads, that hold more oil up to the top of the engine than their predecessors. And why? It's so that these, when you first crank the engine up, you have instant lubrication, because you've got puddles of oil around the camshaft specifically. And so because the upper part of the engine holds more oil, if you had a dipstick and you were driving down the highway and pulled into your driveway, open the hood and check the oil, it's going to show low. It takes several minutes, in fact, Some manufacturers are speaking and promoting some classes 15 minutes drain time on an engine. And some fast in, fast outs are promoting fast in, fast out 10-minute oil changes. That it's not going to work. I'm going to take your calls when I come back. 888 Car Clinic. Why CarStar? Today's vehicles offer comforts and conveniences never imagined 20 years ago. Backup cameras, entertainment systems, start-stop technology, the list goes on. These technologies help avoid accidents. But what happens after a crash? Growth in electronic vehicle content adds to the collision repair cost and complexity. Damage a side view mirror or paint a bumper, and you may change the trajectory of that sensor. Adaptive headlights are another example. They actually turn the corner with you as you're turning the corner. The price for these headlights can reach $2,000. Now, more than ever, it's important to follow automaker guidelines for vehicle repairs. Don't compromise vehicle safety. CarStar is North America's largest multi-shop operator of independently owned repair facilities. CarStar delivers consistently high-quality repairs and the industry's highest customer satisfaction ratings. At CarStar, they don't just repair cars, they repair your car. Learn more at carstar.com. Folks, recently a 99 Chevrolet Blazer came into the shop. The owner was having problems with hesitation upon acceleration. He'd already changed out several parts: spark plugs, wires, ignition coil, mass airflow sensor, fuel filter, and the air filter element. He even changed the thermostat and coolant temperature sensor. Still had the same problem after putting a lot of money in this car, and he was frustrated. We dug a little deeper, cleaned the throttle body, and checked for trouble codes. No codes. So we recommended Berryman B12 Chem Tool. Carbon deposits and dirty fuel injector nozzles are a common problem with drivability in late model engines. We also recommended a higher quality gasoline. The customer noticed improvement on the first day, and only a few days and a few hundred miles later, the problem was completely gone. Berryman B12 Chem Tool features HEST, Berryman's exclusive high-energy solvent technology. The result is a more complete combination of available chemical technologies. Drive to BerrymanProducts.com for more information. That's BerrymanProducts.com.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Telephone tip
from Geico Auto Insurance.
When calling Geico to switch your car insurance, you will not need acetaminophen, naproxen, indomethacin, ibuprofen, a cold compress, an on-call acupuncturist, or any other pain remedy. In 15 minutes, you could save 15% or more. If it were any more painless, you could do it in your sleep, which is theoretically possible since we offer complete 24-hour service. Call 1-800-947-AUTO, 1-800-947-AUTO. Geico Direct, the sensible alternative.
When you purchase the latest TV, tablet, or smartphone, don't forget to do the right thing with your old ones. Recycle them. The Consumer Technology Association and its members are making recycling your old devices as easy as buying new ones. Just go to greenergadgets.org, type in your zip code, and you'll instantly find the recycling location closest to your home. You'll also find recycling tips, like asking the store where you buy your new TV if they'll haul away your old one. Don't let your old tech tools clog your local landfill. Just visit greenergadgets.org.
And now back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic and your host, Bobby Likis.
I want to welcome you back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic, brought to you in part by Grundy Insurance, inventors of the agreed value insurance policy. It's the safest way to protect your collector car, and you can learn more at grundy.com. Okay, we talked about oils. I mentioned oils in the last segment of today's hour of Bobby Likis Car Clinic. So I want to share with you what technicians, that would be yours truly and my techs and your techs across the world, and you as well as the car owner, have to worry about with GF-6 oils. So they're changing the oil specifications again. They being the Society of Automotive Engineers and the governing bodies that test oils. And why do they continue to change oils? Because the technology continues to change. So I'm going to share with you this information, and if you're a technician, heads up. But if you're a car owner, you need to make sure that you ask your technician or your service provider when you go in, do I have to worry about the right kind of oil that you put in my engine? In the meantime, Jonathan will take your calls. If you have a question, I'll be happy to do my best to answer at 888 Car Clinic. That's 888-227-2546. So here's the bottom line, and I won't skip to the bottom line. The fuel economy test, which is a VIE test, will be conducted using a 2012 3.6 liter GM engine that replaces a 2008 2.6 Cadillac engine used in the current test. So they're using a later model engine. Not that a 12 is a necessarily later model engine, but it's an engine that has been run long enough that there's a data record on the wear and tear of this engine. So a modified version of the test is performed so they can measure fuel economy, and here's the key word, in low viscosity oils. Low viscosity oils. And also, here's the challenge. And for those of you in the automotive technical world, LSPI, what is LSPI? What does that stand for? And of course, the LSPI is a low-speed pre-ignition. It's an abnormal combustion event that can cause severe damage in an engine and really goes unnoticed until the engine is already damaged. The phenomena occurs at low speed when the engine is heavily loaded during wide open throttle. Here's why. Tiny droplets of oil mix with the fuel in the combustion chamber and prematurely ignite before the spark plug fires. This results in uncontrolled combustion, and it hammers down on the piston with a massive cylinder pressure spike, and it will destroy the engine. Make no mistake about it, detonation and pre-ignition are two different phenomena, two different issues. Detonation, pinging as you know it, because we have NOx sensors that hear pinging long before you do and sets the timing, advances or retards the timing, detunes the engine. That's nothing to do with pre-ignition. Pre-ignition happens when the piston is way from the top of the engine most often, especially when you got these tiny droplets of oil. So that's because you don't want any oil to mix with the fuel, because that changes the burning characteristic of the fuel and can cause damage. So what are they doing? Well, they tune the engine, they being the manufacturers, and now the oil is changing to a new specification. So the problems with the gasoline direct injection that we've talked about a lot, GDI and turbocharged direct injection engines have manufacturers scrambling for solutions to the low speed LS pre-ignition, PI, low speed PI, which is LSPI, and it's a primary concern. So you want to make sure that when you take your car in, that you make sure that the right viscosity oil is used, because there are tiny orifices in displacement engines, the ones that have the adjustable displacements, where you've got a 264 where it can be modified and changed, and so there are electronic, and then the controls and lifters that will cut off some cylinders. But more importantly, almost all engines today have variable valve timing, and these valve sprockets and timing sprockets use oil pressure, and they use electronic controls inside the engine. And there's phasers, cam phasers they're called. And if you put the wrong oil in there, a cam phaser will be damaged. Fords are notorious for that. I mean, when someone says, you know, I had an oil change, now my engine lights come on. Not the oil pressure light, the check engine light, right? That could be caused by the wrong viscosity oil. So you better make sure you ask. At least that's what you can do, is ask when someone's going to change your oil filter, what oil did you put in my car? Well, if you get a blank stare, then you better make sure that that person knows the right viscosity oil. Let's take a call from Carrie, who has a 69 Firebird story. Yeah, I remember the 69 Firebird. Duh. Carrie, welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Good morning, Bobby.
Good morning.
I was just telling you, back in I think it was 79 or 80, I bought a 69 Firebird factory 400 car from you. It was army green, and I wanted to know if you remember that car.
I do not.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I still got the towels at my house. I bought it. Bobby Likis' name is on the towel.
I'll be darned. And so, folks, let me share this with you. There were 2 years in my life that I decided that I wanted to sell cars. And I've been in the automotive service business for 48 years. But in 1991, I decided that I wanted to sell perfect cars. And I decided that, and that was a mistake, by the way, I sold quite a few cars. They were all great. But I had so much money in those cars because I would go to the auction personally and buy those cars, and I'd pick the ones that I liked. Mistake. I mean, that was a bad mistake. They were beautiful cars. I'll never forget that. But I would bring those cars not to the car lot that I rented, this space, that I also had to upgrade, of all the facilities and what have you. I would bring those cars to my service shop first. And I would change the oil and filter, put new fuel filters, check the tires, replace any tires that were really bad, and do what's called a pre-purchase inspection. And I said, well, I'm going to keep these two companies separate. So I tried that, and there were two individuals that were very successful that told me that I was crazy to do that and said, you'll never make that, and they were right. One of those gentlemen was a car lot person. He was a Ford dealer. His name was Ted Ciano. He forgot more about selling cars than I ever remember or knew. And he said, well, you're going to find out that's the wrong place for you, and it was. And the other was Roy Hess. And Roy Hess, both of those gentlemen have passed. Roy Hess crashed in Pennsylvania in his private plane. He was a very successful individual. And the real bottom line was, I thought, Kerry, and folks, that I could go buy these cars at the auction and pick and choose. Well, in the first place, if you're naive and you get to one of those auctions, those guys can see you coming a mile away. And there's no question that they could see me coming a mile away, because I would go out there a day early and I would walk that 5 acres of lot, and I would pick those vehicles, and I'd say, this is a beautiful car. This is a beautiful car. I want this one. I want this one. And so when you're in the bidding process, bidding wars start. And so that ended up being a mistake. Now, to my knowledge, no one that ever bought one of those cars got a bad car. In fact, some of those folks, like Harry here and another gentleman, John, and I won't mention his last name, but he put 300 and something thousand miles on a vehicle that I chose. But the real bottom line is, that was in the 90s. Well, actually, today's used cars are much better than the 90s used cars were, because they were better when they were new. So the better a car is when it's new, the better it's going to be 10 years or 5 years or 3 years. So you still have the decision to make as to whether or not you want to buy a used car or a new car. Now, it depends on the car, whether or not you can save enough money. For example, Honda cars, and I'm not sure this is exactly as is today, but I did a price comparison for one of my callers several years ago, and it was about a Honda. And a Honda Civic used car, and it wasn't my test. I did research, but I found an aftermarket company, like one of those, major companies that I won't go there, that found out that a used Honda would cost you, to buy a used one or a new one, $236 more money than the new one. And I forget which one it was, but I think it was a Civic. But that was a bottom line. So you can save, $5,000 and $6,000 and $7,000 and $10,000, because when you drive a new car off the curb, then you take a 25 to 30% depreciation hit in the value of that automobile. So that's always been sort of a challenge with people buying used cars. Now, that was then. I don't believe the challenge is today, at least it's not in our area, because we have several local used car dealers that really sell good used cars. I mean, they don't look for deals. They look for good used cars, And one of those companies sells more than 200 vehicles a month. And the owner told me one day, he said, Bobby, I'm not in the car sales business. I'm in the buying business. He said, I have to buy 50 cars a week. I never thought about that. I do now, and I did when he made that comment. When you have to buy 50 cars a week, it's not about selling the cars. It's about where do you find 50 cars a week that don't come back to bite you because they were good cars, especially if you're in a community. So I just say this for all of those of you around the nation who are tuned in. When you're thinking about buying a used car, check out the dealer and see how long they've been on or in the same location, and make sure that you're buying a car from someone that's going to be there next year or the year after, because it's those businesses that are stable that have treated their customers right and have produced a product that people like and will pay for. And to that end, that means that when you go to do business with someone like that, you're better assured that you're going to get a good deal and a good car for the money. And a good deal doesn't mean the best price. Anyway, I could go on forever. I'm not. I'm going to come back and take your calls at 888 Car Clinic after this break. Don't go away. Talking tunes? No, not the ones on your radio. The ones that allow you to reprogram your vehicle's factory computer without even popping the hood. The result is more power, more torque, and a better overall driving experience. We recently sat down with Jim McGinn, Vice President of Marketing for Power Tech. Jim touched on some of the additional products Diablo Sport has to offer.
In addition to the Diablo Sport lineup of tuners, Diablo Sport also offers Jammer cold air intake systems and Hooker Blackheart exhaust kits. These kits work in concert with the Predator 2, Intune i3, and Trinity 2 programmers to deliver increased fuel economy, mileage, and overall performance for your gas truck or SUV.
Folks, Diablo Sports performance products make the perfect holiday gift, and now is a perfect time to buy with their holidays savings. How cool is that? You get up to 20% off SRP on their extensive lineup of premium performance products. Learn more at DiabloSport.com. That's DiabloSport.com.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
More than 1 million wild animals are killed each year illegally. Poaching is a major threat to our country's wildlife. I'm Tom Barry. I'm an actor with a desire to preserve living space for wildlife. The Humane Society Wildlife Land Trust does just that. Works with private landowners to protect wildlife, to preserve natural habitats. To learn more or to work with the Humane Society Wildlife Land Trust, call 800-729-SAVE. That's 800-729-SAVE, or visit wildlifelandtrust.org. Thank you.
Did you know 26 million Americans have kidney disease and most don't know it?
The day I was diagnosed, I didn't know what to do. I called the National Kidney Foundation, and the young lady who answered stayed on the phone with me and walked me through step by step. She too was surviving kidney disease, and she showed me there could be life after kidney disease.
Visit the National Kidney Foundation at kidney.org. Now you know.
We're a land of cynics. We don't believe anything anymore. You know why? Because we've been told we've won $1 million, that it's new and improved, that it slices and dices, that our favorite singer is still alive, that we'll be prosecuted if we cut off the tags, and of course that everything is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee. So when we hear the words customer service, we don't believe it. Travelocity isn't surprised if you're a little skeptical when they say they have excellent customer service, and that there's actually a pleasant face behind this website, a living, breathing person with a supercharged computer full of answers. Someone who's willing to help when you get lost, and most of all, someone that will actually pick up the phone when you call with a question or a concern. Customer service is just another example of how Travelocity puts you in control of travel. Chances are you'll never have to use it, but it's good to know it'll be there if you need it. Travelocity.com. Go virtually anywhere.
And now back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic and your host, Bobby Likis.
Well, thanks for tuning in today. I'm glad that you join me every Saturday from 10 till noon Eastern Time right here from the center of the automotive universe. And if you have a car question or a concern, I'm your guy. I'm your personal car consultant. and I'll share information with you, and sometimes that information may not be what you want to hear. And I'll give you a good example. If you got a used car, and it's not worth a lot of money because it's old, and you got maybe 150, 200,000 miles on the car, and perhaps you've not kept up with the maintenance. I mean, that would you'd fit into a category which is quite normal, because if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So people just drive their cars until the car takes them into a shop versus them taking their car into a shop. That keeps AAA in business, by the way. I can tell you. And also, you want to make sure, with regard to being proactive, you want to make sure that you better understand what your car needs. And so that's what I can do for you. I can help you to determine by the miles and the age of your car. Now, I'm not here to repair your car. That's not my goal, because I'm here and you're there, and you're going to have a hands-on technician that's been properly trained and has experience in the automotive repair and service industry to do the job right. And I say that because that's 50 or 60 hours a week. That's what we do. And we have our share of challenges every day. There's never a dull moment, I can tell you. I'll give you a good example. Just this week, we had to replace an air conditioner evaporator core temperature sensor. Well, what is that? It's nothing more than a probe that sticks about an inch deep into the evaporator core and tells the computer the temperature of the evaporator core, so that the core never goes below 32 degrees. Because if it goes below 32 degrees, then the core will freeze, because condensation freezes. Well, this particular sensor was reading minus 20 degrees. So the compressor would never come on, period. The compressor never came on. So the air conditioner didn't work, even though the owner turned the air conditioner on, because the computer thought that the evaporator core was below 32 degrees Fahrenheit, because it was minus 22 degrees. Now, how do we know that? Because we have the professional scan tool. So we're reading. I'm looking at this with Johnny Bars, who is our shop foreman and our master ASC service technician. And master meaning he's passed all 8 categories and more of training and testing. So the bottom line, here's the computer reading less than, or the sensor, like a thermostat, like you take your temperature, was reading minus 22. So the car says, I'm not turning the air conditioner compressor on because it's going to freeze. So he said, okay, we got to replace that sensor. That meant open dash surgery. Had to remove the actual dash assembly and the evaporator box, because when this car was manufactured and assembled at the factory, all those controls were within the HVAC box. So he takes it apart, does a heck of a job, and replaces this sensor. Sure enough, worked fine, no issues. However, about 2 hours after, or 3 hours after road driving, the air conditioner started to freeze up. So the car comes back. Well, now the compressor's working and the car's cooling, which it wasn't before. But the compressor wouldn't shut off, whereas before the compressor wouldn't come on. The bottom line, we looked at the temperature, and sure enough, the temperature was reading 18 degrees, from minus 22 to 18 and 20 and 25 degrees. Well, you can't have an air conditioner evaporator core below 32 degrees. But before it was minus 22, so it never worked. Now the compressor wouldn't shut off. So now we shift from an in-dash to an underhood, and he found the relay for the air conditioner compressor had stuck on, and the compressor wouldn't cycle. So after checking for several, I guess a couple of hours with this vehicle running, replaced the relay, and here we are now at 33 37, 38, 33, 37, 38. And every time the evaporator core would reach 33 degrees, the computer would shut off the compressor, and then, of course, the temperature would start to come up. It's called cycling. So that just gives you an example of known failed parts that were two separate operations, but unless you actually had proof and had testing procedures in place, you would never know that. So I just want to share that with you, because those are some of the challenges that we face every day. So when you take your car to a service shop and you have a check engine light and it says the O2 sensor, you put an O2 sensor on it, and the check engine light comes on 2 days later, and it has a throttle position sensor code in it. One has nothing to do with the other, although the same light was on. So I just want you to know that it's really like sort of like having a test for your health, your own health. If you have a chest pain, you don't walk up to the doctor and the doctor says, okay, we're going to do open heart surgery. Well, can't we do a little test first? Right, called stress tests. So that's what has to be done with your automobile. There are tests that have to be performed, and those tests will cost you money. And so how do you keep from getting into the fray of repair? You be proactive. You take your car into a service shop no less than twice a year. And if you only put 5,000 miles a year and you use synthetic oil, you don't have to go to a shop because you don't need to change your oil. It doesn't mean you don't have to have your car inspected. And so just for you to know, the feat or the process of changing oil and filter in a car is not what you should be doing. And it's not what your car needs. Your car needs an inspection twice a year. For us, we use a digital vehicle inspection process with iPads and photos, and it's all digital. So if we see a deficiency or an oil leak or whatever, we take a picture of it. And our software immediately takes that picture from each one of our tech's iPads and puts it on your file. So we've got that. We know exactly what and how serious that leak is. And we have evidence. And then, and by the way, while the car's here for its digital inspection, we change the oil and filter. But the car doesn't come in for an oil and filter change, although that's what most car owners think, and that's what they think of. And also, most car owners think that changing oil and filter is the service that the car needs to keep it healthy. That's just one of many services. Just like you brush your teeth twice a day, but still every 6 months they need to be professionally cleaned. So you can use gasoline, different gasolines like Shell. Shell puts they have this platinum, and they have this platinum brand V-Power, which is a good gasoline. And they advertise that it has 4 times the detergent that's mandated by the EPA. Well, that's probably true. Well, it definitely is true because they can't advertise if it's not. So is that gas better than brand X? Well, I would say so, yeah, because it has that extra cleaner. You still could use some cleaner because the concentration of cleaner is some pretty serious commercial grade. Okay, I want to shift gears here. And I'll invite your calls. There's still plenty of time to get in to 888 Car Clinic, 888-227-2546. And by the way, when you call, please don't use a speaker phone. And please, when you do call, let's you and I have a communication there. I can take a cell phone calls depending on the nature, but if it's hard for me to hear, I know it's hard for others to hear across the nation. So I'm going to shift gears now and talk about super turbo technology. This company, I'm not familiar with super turbo technologies, but I received this information through our automotive media, and they presented at the SAE World Congress, and that's a Society of Automotive Engineers. And I'll just share with you a little bit about a super turbo. It's a fully mechanical driven turbocharger that provides the benefits of supercharging and turbocharging. What's the difference? A supercharger, folks, is an air blower that is belt driven by the engine. So the minute the engine RPM increases, you have increased pressure, so you have instant horsepower. A turbocharger uses the exhaust pressure to drive a turbine that drives a shaft that drives another turbine that pushes air in the motor. So the more air out, the more pressure in. So literally a turbocharger has a wastegate, because otherwise you would destroy your engine, and it would just continue to compound pressure, more pressure in, more pressure out, more pressure in. And the same thing's true for a turbocharger. There has to be controls for the pressure. So this company, from what I understand, has combined supercharging and turbocharging, and they call it turbo compounding in one device. The Super Turbo includes a high-speed traction drive that transfers bidirectional torque between the turbine shaft and a continuously variable transmission, which then allows for overall ratio control between the turbo and the crankshaft. So that sounds Greek to me, and if you're not a technician, I'm sure it sounds Greek to you. But I think it's indicative, and I share this with you because just when you think that we had reached the pinnacle of electronics and technologies in the automotive aftermarket, in the cars that you buy, something else new comes out and some new design, and the technology drives us. And we've talked ad nauseum really about EV cars and self-driving cars, and we'll see self-driving cars. Well, there are self-driving cars now, but they're really the technology is there, and it's just a matter now. I say just a matter of continued testing, millions and hundreds of millions of miles, which is being done, and then those vehicles on the road, and then we have to have standards that are national standards, and so that all of the manufacturers that make these cars, whether it's Mercedes or GM, Ford, Chrysler, you name it, all of these manufacturers know the rules and regulations of the manufacturing processes and the roads. And then we can begin to enjoy. And you say, well, how do we enjoy that? Well, there are a lot of folks that are too old to drive or handicapped to drive. So in that case, that's reason alone for self-driving cars, so that we have the freedom, so that if you lose the physical ability to perform the task of driving a car safely, or period, you can still go from point A to point B without becoming a burden on someone else. And that's what self-driving cars can bring to the table. So that's enough reason in and of itself for us to go forward, and we will, like it or not, and I've had one caller that really doesn't care for self-driving cars, but he mixes politics, with and you can't do that. You have to look at technology. So I see we have a call, and I knew it would have a call at the last part of the show here, so we may have time to get it in. It depends. Jonathan will put in the meantime, I want to share with you another important point about your engine, and that's the temperature. You need an engine that immediately, no such thing as immediate. Oil pressure comes up almost immediately, but the temperature of your engine needs to warm up fast, and it needs to stay stable, because until the oil gets hot and until the engine is up to operating temperature, you have a higher load of emissions that exit, and you have poor drivability, not to mention the MPG. So in order to make sure that you have optimized engine temperature, Motorrad created, designed, and brings to the market the UltraStat, so that the next time that you have your cooling system serviced, you should upgrade your car with an UltraStat thermostat that's manufactured, made, and marketed by Motorrad. And I would encourage you, just as a car owner, so that you'll be apprised of what your options are, to go to Motorrad, MOTORAD.com, and just check out the information. And by the way, Motorrad now has engine management sensors as well, because that company knows and appreciates and realizes the importance of proper engine management. so that you get the biggest bang for your buck. So when you do, go to motorrad.com, check it out, and so you can call and ask me a question. And I know that John is from Pennsylvania. He has a question about Diablo Sport, but with all due respect to John, you've just waited too late, John, and I would ask that you call us back next week there. He's got a 2017 Chevrolet Express. He has a question about Diablo Sport, and it wants gas mileage. I would say, John, that I'll be glad to discuss that with you on next week's broadcast. And we're live from 10 till noon every Saturday, Eastern Time. But to get into that conversation would require more time than I have left in the few seconds that we have of this broadcast. So thank you for calling, John. I'll look forward to your call next week between 10 and noon Eastern Time. And folks, thanks for tuning in today. Hope you learned something. Stay tuned. Take care of your car. I'm Bobby Likis. Like us, you'll love us.
This is Bobby Likis Car Clinic. Bobby Likis Car Clinic is a copyrighted presentation of Car Clinic Productions Incorporated and may not be reproduced or rebroadcast without the express written approval of Car Clinic Productions Incorporated.
Right now at O'Reilly Auto Parts, pick up 5 quarts of Mobil 1 full synthetic motor oil for $28.95 and get a $10 O'Reilly gift card by mail. Protect your engine from sludge and wear with Mobil 1 full synthetic motor oil at O'Reilly Auto Parts. Better parts, better prices every day. Limits apply. See store for details.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Coolant leaks can be expensive, with repairs costing a few $1,000s or more. And these problems often hit vehicles late in life when they may be only worth a few $1,000s. There is an alternative. K-Seal is a pour-in solution designed to stop leaks and help prevent future leaks. Older sealers use sodium silicate, which has a tendency to clog the system. K-Seal features ceramic technology that's designed to repair the leak without clogging. Learn more about K-Seal at kseal.com. Don't just seal it, K-Seal it.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Rosie Outfitters, I'm Tina. How can I help you?
I'd like to place an order.
Great. Which item?
The cotton roll neck sweater, large.
Okay. Periwinkle, Loden, or caramel?
The caramel, please.
The what?
I'd like it in caramel.
Oh, the caramel?
Yeah, that's what I said, Tina.
Actually, you said caramel when it's pronounced caramel.
Can't we just call it yellow?
No.
Everyone knows the best part of a Milky Way. They just don't know how to say it. After all, it's our caramel.
It's caramel.
Ugh, that makes a Milky Way great.
You start my morning, you stir in my soul, you warm my heart, make me feel whole. Your aroma calls me, starts my morning, happy morning. Your name is Fortress Mountain